Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Long Take. Today's episode, we are going to go Nolan on you. We're going to talk so much about Christopher Nolan, you're not going to take it by the end. We're also going to fit in a review of Nightcrawler, and we'll do some other things too. I am your host, Kenneth Guidry, and along with me in New Jersey is Justyn Moore. Justyn, say hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody.
I live in Los Angeles. Justyn lives in New Jersey. We're kind of a bi-coastal. Would you say you're bi, Justyn? Bi-coastal?
We're both bi. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and by that I mean bi-coastal.
Yeah. What did you think we meant?
Exactly. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what people would.
I don't see how people could possibly misconstrue that.
Mm-hmm. So let's just make that clear. Justyn and I are bi-coastal. So today we're going to talk about Christopher Nolan.
That's right.
And why would we do this? Why would we talk about this guy? Who the hell cares about this guy? Does he have a movie coming out or something?
I think this guy, Christopher Nolan, has a big movie coming out pretty soon. If I'm not mistaken, it's next week. Yes,
next Friday. I think it's actually coming out a few days before that. The word around the street is you gotta see this movie in IMAX.
IMAX, yeah. Well, that's how I want to do it.
That's how I want to do it, but we'll talk about that, because there's some issues about the IMAX screenings that I'll talk to you about that I've heard about. So I'm it's a little bit of a dilemma.
Problems with the IMAX? Like what?
Should I just divulge now? Should I get into it now?
Yeah, sure. What are they saying?
Well, apparently, when they saw an IMAX, the sound mix was weird. It was really loud. They say it's a really loud movie, and They say because it's so loud, it's kind of hard to hear some of the dialogue. They say there's some dialogue sound issues in the IMAX version. I don't know if that's just because of the critic screenings. I hope it's not going to be like that when it actually opens, and for some people they said it actually kind of affected the way they watched because it was so loud.
Yeah.
They couldn't quite parse through what was happening. I don't know.
I've been at IMAX screenings before, and it definitely is louder, because IMAX isn't just, a larger screen. That's what they say, before the movie starts. It's also enhanced sound.
Right.
It's also enhanced sound on top of it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was louder, but if it's that loud where it's taking people out of the movie, that's not a good thing.
And I've heard people who said they went to see it 35 millimeter, and it was better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I might wind up seeing it non-IMAX because it costs a lot of money.
That would really bother me, though. You get excited to go see a movie. I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX, and it was like an event. I went with a bunch of my friends, and I would get hyped up to see something like Interstellar in IMAX because it is Nolan. And I think he did shoot this in IMAX, right? Just like he did with Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises?
I think he shot large portions of this movie in IMAX, yeah.
Okay. So to get all excited, to find an IMAX theater near you, to spend the extra money to see it in IMAX, and to get there and have it be not worth it, that would just piss me off.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty upset too. And what are you going to do about Christopher Nolan? He's the talk of this podcast, for sure. I want to do his filmography
That's a good idea.
Style. I want to do it backwards.
Oh, I thought you meant we were just going to talk and then forget that we were talking every 15 seconds and just start.
You know what? I think you killed my wife, and I'm going to kill you. So that's what I think.
Good luck.
Oh.
You need a lot of tattoo ink and Polaroid camera with plenty of film.
I have a tattoo that says his name was Jay Moore. So I don't know if it's just. It could be anybody with the last name Moore.
It could be the actor Jake Moore.
It could be. You know what it is? The last name is spelled M-O-H-R, so that's very disconcerting.
Damn.
But before we get into the filmography of Christopher Nolan, I want to open up the discussion about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy. This guy right here, he's not exactly universally praised as a filmmaker. Tarantino has detractors. Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. Is there anybody out there who's universally loved? I don't think so.
But Christopher Nolan, I feel like it's different with Christopher Nolan because he let's look at what he's done, right?
Okay.
Following, Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, Dark Knight,
Inception, and Dark Knight Rises, and now Interstellar.
So this is his 10th movie coming out.
Yeah, it's a good run.
It's a pretty good run,
to say the least.
But 3 of those movies are comic book movies.
Yeah.
I feel like Interstellar is like the second chapter of his career.
You think so? This is going to be the mark of something brand new?
Not necessarily, but it's like he probably won't do another superhero movie anytime soon.
Probably not.
I hope he doesn't go back to doing it at all, because
with him doing Batman, it wasn't like, Favreau doing Iron Man or something like that. It's like an appealing idea, like, let's reboot Batman, let's do it differently. I don't think he would have done it if it was just making Batman 5 or something like that, or wherever they left off with Batman and Robin, like, just adding to that story. There's something appealing about going back to the beginning and being able to put your own stamp on the story, so that a new generation will get a new taste of what Batman is.
But I think what will be interesting about his career going forward is that if he doesn't return to making superhero movies or, some kind of like blockbuster sequel type thing, he now is going to be, I assume, original stories or stories that he's come up with organically.
Well, hey, like, everything that isn't Batman has been an original story, am I wrong?
Yeah. But I mean, like, the public perception of Christopher Nolan, when he really started to get these criticisms, which we'll talk about, is because of the Dark Knight trilogy. I think the massive success of these movies, the huge fan following of these movies. I mean, the one biggest criticism I think people have against Christopher Nolan is his tendency to be a bit serious. There are some comic moments in, like, The Dark Knight.
You have to learn to think a little... What does he say? You have to learn to dream a little bigger, darling? Tom Hardy in Inception? That was funny.
That line?
Yeah.
That was a funny line.
He's got a dark sense of humor, like with the magic trick in The Dark Knight.
That's true.
His movies have their own tone to them. I've never... I mean, I'm not one to complain about that, though. I've never had a problem with that. Like, his movies being too serious, that's never even come into my... I mean, I guess it's true, but he makes those kind of movies. It's okay. Clint Eastwood makes serious movies, too.
That's true. But I think with Nolan, it's because now he's making the big blockbusters. He's got mostly critical success. So I think there's a tendency to be like, you know what, we got to knock this guy down a bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like...
Maybe it's like too much too fast, because he got really, really lucky with, like, how did he even get Batman Begins? Like, before that, what was his biggest thing?
Memento and Insomnia.
He did Insomnia before Batman? Yeah, because between Batman Begins and Dark Knight, he did The Prestige.
Yeah, it just kind of happened like that. I remember before Batman Begins came out, because I had seen Memento before Batman Begins came out. And I was like, oh, man, what is he doing? He made 3 movies at this point. And when Batman Begins, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Nolan, I wanted more movies like Memento, you know what I mean? And at the time, you have to remember that, like, Batman and Robin was still pretty fresh in my mind.
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember what movie I was seeing, but we were sitting in the theater watching the different trailers, and I see this guy walking through Asia, and it's like this very wide shots of the landscape and stuff, and it's Christian Bale, and it winds up being the Batman Begins trailer, and I'm like, oh no, not another. Like, what are they doing here? Like, just let it die. Like, let it be done. I was really just skeptical from the get-go.
But okay, so he makes the Batman Begins movie. It winds up becoming very surprisingly successful.
Yeah.
I remember Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. It really made a big impact, both in the box office, and all of a sudden people were like, oh, like, a good Batman movie. It's been a while.
Batman it's a very good story because it's a human, that human element. He is a mortal person. He can die. He doesn't have any superpowers, so you can kind of identify with that, I guess. But it makes it a little more believable, which is why I'm really glad that Nolan decided to put this incarnation of Batman in the real world, as real a world as possible.
The further he gets away from the Batman trilogy, I think people will finally start to evaluate him without that stigma. Because whether or not those movies are good, they're still this big pop culture thing. They made billions of dollars. And so that's always going to be... And people who didn't like the trilogy, might have a stigma against Christopher Nolan's movies, just period.
Yeah, like, people have no right to hate on him. Like, at least he's trying. He's coming up with original stuff, you know, give him some credit. You know, at least it's not just taking somebody else's story and adding a twist to it, or, you know, rebooting something that's been done and overdone.
Now, I feel like with Dark Knight, you know, it plays out like this big, long crime film with comic book elements to it, and the pacing is just relentless all throughout. It's just a relentless pace, and the Joker is relentless. The first time you watch it, at least, you're legitimately unsure of what's going to happen, you know, because the scenarios that the writers come up with for the Joker, they're really out there.
That's it right there, is just the Joker. Heath Ledger's performance in that movie. I remember, you know, just being giddy with excitement every time he came on the screen because he owned it. And part of that was because, you know, he had just recently passed away. But the other part of just, like, how deep into this role he sunk and how he just lived it, like, completely. I don't know. I just bought it. I bought in completely.
So far, that hasn't been topped for me. It's been 6 years. Since then, Marvel movies have kind of just been, they all kind of play out the same way. And unless you're a big fan of those specific characters, you're pretty much going to get the same movie. And you know what? For kids, for teenagers, that's great. And, you know, maybe they're still going to these things, so that's good for them.
It's become a little monotonous, to say the least. I mean, it's been monotonous now for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think with Dark Knight Trilogy, the reason why I ultimately enjoy Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises is because by the end of the movie, something has radically changed. You know, things are different now. Even though Bruce Wayne ultimately gets back in the Batsuit and fights again, he's a changed man. You know, there's different things about him. He goes through different things in the third movie. His butler quits. You know, Alfred quits. You know, like that was some serious shit. And then by the end of the movie, he's done. I mean, he's moved on. By the end of Dark Knight, his main love interest is dead. You know, Harvey Dent is Two-Faced. Like, there's serious consequences by the end. It's not like, oh well, let's go home now. It's not all wrapped up pretty. You know, I would say Batman Begins is a little different because Batman Begins, I think the reason why it's just not quite up there is because it is kind of a setup for the second movie. I think that's the one thing. It's in many ways it works on its own, but when you see the Joker card, you know, at the end, it is kind of like it kind of works better as a setup to the second movie, and that's always been kind of a knock for me.
Yeah, because that's like the most exciting part of the movie is the last couple seconds when you see that. You know, it kind of makes you forget all the other great things that you've seen because you're just looking forward to the next movie.
So I wonder though. I hope once Christopher Nolan gets further and further away from the Dark Knight trilogy and makes Interstellar and makes another good block, I mean, whatever he makes, you'll start to see a bit of a change in the way people perceive him. Christopher Nolan, you know, he made his big 3 superhero movies. He's probably done with that now.
I think without a doubt, yeah. I would be very surprised if he went back to something like that.
Now he has free reign to do whatever he wants until he fails.
And that's a good situation for an artist to be in, wouldn't you say? You just do whatever you want. You've got the money, you've got the power, make it happen. And he's been really reliable. You know, like he's got, you know, he's slowly built from Following to Memento to Insomnia, and then just like a huge spike if you're looking at a chart or something. When he came up with Batman Begins to the Dark Knight and so on. You know, it's just been a steady rise, and he's just made hit after hit after hit. So, you know, at this point, he can do whatever he wants. I'll be first in line. Well, you'll be second. Yeah,
I'll be second. I'll be second in line. But that's the thing. I just think that let's just give him some slack. Let's let him, because that's why I say second phase of his career. He doesn't need the Dark Knight trilogy anymore. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. So what is he going to do? You know, we start with Interstellar. What's he gonna do after that? Is he gonna be making more blockbusters? He has a lot of choices now, and I think that's a very interesting time for Nolan. That's why I say he's kind of getting started, because he's gonna have 10, 15. He's still 43, 44 years old.
Yeah, he's a young guy.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, from that, you know, Martin Scorsese's in his mid-70s, so like
he's still going strong.
I can see. So here's the thing. Here's why I want to talk about criticisms, because I could see Nolan faltering. I think, and that's a good question to ask. What are Christopher Nolan's weaknesses? as a filmmaker? And are there weaknesses in Christopher Nolan that you think could plague him in future films? That's the question.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, like, let me just give you an example of another director. I mean, the first director that I think of in comparison with Christopher Nolan is Steven Spielberg, just because no one's been able to have hit after hit. I mean, granted, 3 of his hits are from a well-known franchise, probably the most well-known superhero franchise there is. But, I mean, he still was able to turn that around, and they were massively successful because they were good, or because people liked them, because there was an element of artistry and craft in it that people liked, you know? So, and other than that, but also, he also made Inception, which was hugely successful.
Hugely successful.
It was hugely successful. I gotta say that again.
Say it 10 times fast.
And Interstellar, I mean, we'll see. I think it could be just as big.
It certainly has everything going for it, you know. Matthew McConaughey coming off a huge year.
Right. So I think of Spielberg because, you know, Spielberg had Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Indiana Jones
trilogy.
His trilogy, which is like, when you were talking about comparing Nolan to Spielberg and the Batman trilogy, like, that's a well-known franchise, and so is Indiana Jones, but that's something that he and, I guess, George Lucas, the two of them created.
Right.
It's not like they took something and adopted it.
Yeah, they pretty much made that out of scratch. I mean, they took elements from other things, but yeah. There's this video on YouTube, Siskel and Ebert, talking about the movies of Spielberg. And now, this video was from 1984, or 1985. And think about where Spielberg was in 1985, okay? Like I said, he made Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and then he made Temple of Doom. And he was about to make The Color Purple. That's where he was at in 1985. So, naturally, Siskel and Ebert were pretty psyched to talk about Spielberg at the time, because it was like, what is he going to do next? How is he going to entertain us next? How is it that he's making these hits on a consistent basis? I mean, we can't overlook the fact that Spielberg did make 1941 in between Close Encounters and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's actually on my Netflix to watch, or Netflix Instant Queue.
Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty sizable flop at the time.
Is it a good movie?
It has its moments, but yeah, it's definitely a minor entry in Spielberg's filmography.
Yeah, wasn't it like he just looked at these guys, Belushi and whatnot, and he's like, I got to make a movie with these guys while I have the chance.
I think that might have been it.
So you look at what Spielberg had done up until that point, and compare that to what Nolan's done up until now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Spielberg was a bit younger at the time.
Yeah, he was a wunderkind.
Yeah, so I think, like, let's see, Following came out in 98, so this is like his 16th year of being a professional film director. Spielberg, his first major film was The Sugarland Express, which came out the year before Jaws. That was 74. Plus 16 years, would be 1990. That would be right after Last Crusade, the third Indiana Jones movie. That's actually a good point.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, because that's the third film.
I was about to say third and final, but unfortunately, it is not the third and final incarnation of the Indiana Jones. Well, it's still third, but not the last.
Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, like, where was Spielberg going to go at that point? And even, like, 5 years before that, when Siskel and Ebert were talking about him, it was like there was an excitement there. And I think that Nolan has that same element of excitement regarding his work. But at the same time, Spielberg had his detractors as well. I mean, people thought of his movies as basically just being popcorn fare. You know, they didn't really
moneymakers.
They didn't really take his movies that seriously. That was a mark that he took to heart, I think, because you think about what he tried to do in the late 80s. He made The Color Purple, he made Empire of the Sun, and then he made Always, which was, I never even seen Always, but that's like it's like this weird drama that's in Spielberg's filmography that doesn't really seem to fit with the rest of his...
It kind of sticks out, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, in the 90s, after he made Always and
Jurassic Park,
he made Jurassic Park, and he made
Schindler's List, right?
Schindler's List. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, him making Schindler's List, him making Amistad, and Saving Private Ryan, I think he really wanted to show that he can be a serious director. With Nolan, it's interesting because, starting with Memento, at least, and Insomnia, I think he already showed that he can be a serious director. I think the problem is that when we're talking about detractors and criticism, is that despite the occasional glimpses of humor in the Dark Knight trilogy, I think people ultimately see those movies as being too self-serious. They're grittier, they're darker than most in your standard blockbuster. I gotta admit, I have to be in the mood to want to watch The Dark Knight. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to be.
Well, because that movie takes you places emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, I could watch Indiana Jones right now.
Whatever.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That movie is just a blast. So it's an interesting difference there between the two, because whereas people thought Spielberg was too light, people now think Nolan's too heavy. I mean, you think about what's his funniest film so far, it's Memento. Memento has so many great and funny scenes. Even though it's a serious movie, it's probably his lightest film.
Light subject matter, trying to solve the murder of your wife.
Yeah, of his wife. That's what's funny about that.
Laughs for the whole family.
But so I wonder if, because so far, despite the detractors that there are, I would say every film he's made so far has been a critical and financial success.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why I don't really buy into it, like, faulting him for not being funny enough or light enough or being too dark. He makes the kind of movies that he makes, and you either like them or you don't. And that's why we have choices when we go to the cinema. We can go see a different movie. You expect what you get with a Christopher Nolan film, just like you know what you're going to get when you go see Quentin Tarantino or David Fincher. You have an idea of what to expect, and I don't want to live in a world where, like, an artist is going to change the way he does his art because fans or critics are saying that it's not enough of one thing. You know what I mean? It's not light enough. Hopefully, I hope he just sticks with what he's doing, because it's worked so far. Don't, just keep doing whatever you want to do. I have faith in him as a filmmaker because he's shown growth, and I think he knows what he's doing.
At the same time, I think we have to make this clear, though, is that I do think, judging from the trailers of Interstellar, I do think part of Interstellar is a reaction against people's criticisms. And it's funny because Nolan apparently never reads anything. But,
don't they all say that, though?
Yeah. But I think that judging from what we've seen of Interstellar so far, it's much more emotional. It seems it's much more trying to get at the heart. Yeah. Whereas people felt Inception was too heady. It was too much in its own mind.
Yeah, very clean. Even even when it gets crazy and hectic, it's still a very clean movie.
I guess some people felt like the moments between Leonardo DiCaprio and Marion Cotillard's characters, I think people felt those moments weren't really strong enough, to really appeal to the emotional side of the movie, because overall, the overall construction of the movie is so, like I said, heady. It's so cerebral that I'd have to say if there was a weakness to Inception, is that those emotional scenes between Cobb, was it, and then whoever his wife,
Mom.
Yeah, quite. I've watched Inception 2 more times since I've seen it in theaters, and I would say that those scenes probably hit me less than they did the first time I watched it. I'd say everything else, I'm still overall very impressed with the movie. I think it's a fantastic film. A lot of it works for me, but I would say if the reason why it's not like 10 out of 10 A+ is because it probably doesn't work 100% from an emotional standpoint. I maybe don't connect with the film emotionally, because the movie takes a lot of time trying to really emphasize Cobb's relationship.
The movie takes all this time to build this world, and to teach the audience how this world operates. In order to do that successfully, like that's a task in itself. He has to juggle that and tell a good story and make these characters believable. So I guess that's the one instance where, like, as you say it, I tend to I have to agree with you there. That some of the I'm remembering the scene where she's sitting on the edge of the by the window, and she's about to commit suicide. And, like, I remember being pretty affected by that in the theater, and then when I'd see it a couple times after, like, at home, not so much. Maybe partly because I knew it was coming, but also because maybe it's not as strong as I thought it was.
And like when I asked about when I asked what his weaknesses were, I would say Christopher Nolan is not quite the romantic. He's not really a romantic guy, at least so far. He hasn't really appealed in that sense.
Hey, Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle live happily ever after.
I mean, sure. But, I mean, you know what? Okay. The scenes between Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle probably work best for me out of any other, like, male-female interaction in a Nolan movie so far. Because I think that he was able to play up, like, the flirtatious aspects of those characters. And we haven't really seen a Nolan character flirt before. You know what I mean? Like, really kind of have like a match in that sense, in terms of wit, in terms of like just kind of playing back and forth with each other, a rapport, So it'd be interesting to see if he ever showcases that side in the future, because I think that's why those scenes don't work that well, is because Nolan just isn't a romantic, or maybe he is, and we haven't seen him really pull it off yet. You know what I mean?
When you're watching, going back to Spielberg, like, who knew that he was capable of The Color Purple, Schindler's List, things like that, back when he was making Close Encounters and Jaws.
Although, I would say Close Encounters at least shows us, I think it's the first instance of where we really see Spielberg's sentimental side. And I think that has been what has plagued Spielberg sometimes, is that he can get a little heavy on sentimentality. That was what really turned me off to Warhorse and like Amistad. Saving Private Ryan doesn't hit me as hard as it used to, because there's just it plays up the emotional aspects, like, to a degree where it's just uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. I've kind of cooled on Spielberg. The last movie of his that I saw that I was excited to see was Lincoln, and that was more to see Daniel Day-Lewis than, to see a Spielberg movie. And I don't even, I didn't see Warhorse. I don't know what he's developing now, but, I don't know.
It's interesting, right? I think Nolan is kind of like the anti-Spielberg, in a sense, as far as tone. I think they have different tone in their movies. I think that where Spielberg can be romantic, can be sentimental, because, you think about E.T., there's a degree of feeling in E.T. between, like, those characters. There's emotion between those characters. And that's something that I don't think Nolan's good at. I don't think Nolan's good at, so far, really...
Have any of his characters really relied on others in his movies? They seem like pretty independent characters.
That's true.
Even though Batman needed Catwoman's help in Dark Knight Rises, it's not really the same. Like, it's not a character who absolutely, even though they kind of do need each other, I guess you're right. That could have been played up a lot more, because he is an emotionally damaged person. But that would have made that movie probably another 45 minutes.
And you know what?
If you wanted to add all that stuff in.
You know what? Because Nolan is generally not an emotional director or a romantic director, the scenes with Michael Caine in The Dark Knight Rises, and we're kind of jumping all over the place, so excuse us, but where he gets emotional, where Michael Caine gets emotional.
Doesn't it hit you?
It hits me, but I don't know, watching it again, those scenes almost feel like a different movie.
Yeah, because the tone is like, there you go with your tonal shift.
Yeah, so I remember really hitting me when I was watching it in the theaters with you, but then watching it again, I'm like, wow, Michael Caine is doing great, but it's like he's in a different movie than everyone else. So I'm not sure if those scenes are like an example of, hey, look, he can be an emotional director. I don't know. I just wonder if Nolan has that in him, because you think of Inception, okay? You had these guys forming a team together to try and convince Cillian Murphy's character to... I don't even remember what the MacGuffin is. But, so Cobb gathers these guys together. And there are brief instances where, Joseph Gordon-Levitt kisses Ellen Page. When Tom Hardy has that quote you like.
Yeah, I think everybody likes that. You have to learn to dream a little bigger,
right,
darling.
But other than those, little small instances, you don't really feel like these characters really get to know each other that well. They're just kind of doing a job, You know what I mean? And so
you kind of assume that, with the exception of Ellen Page's character, that they all kind of already know each other. And
yet, you don't really get that. You know, I didn't really get that from Inception, that they really...
That they don't have a history? I like, the way that they... That's what I meant, that they had a history.
It's implied that they have a history, but you don't really see it enough, I don't think. I don't think you really see, like, a good rapport between these guys.
The movie moves pretty quickly, like, from one area to the next. Like, the pacing, wouldn't you agree, is pretty quick? It's always on the go, that movie.
Yeah, I would say so.
So there's not a whole lot of time for, relationships to build or to be explored.
I don't know. I don't buy that completely. I think in any movie, no matter how quick the pacing is, I think of Goodfellas. There's no... I just watched that yesterday. There's no... Or Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, long-ass movies. And yet, by the end of Wolf of Wall Street, Jonah Hill's character and Leonardo DiCaprio's character feel something for each other. Or at least to a degree. Scorsese allows time to have these character-building moments. And I think that, again... I think maybe the reason why Inception doesn't work from, like, the emotional, romantic angle is because it's so plot-heavy, because the movie is so big on its ideas. It wants to explore these ideas with you. I think that because of that, it has this whole aspect where it's trying to appeal to you emotionally, and it just doesn't work because it's too plot-centric. I think that's the problem. And that's me saying that, and me loving most of the movie. But I'm saying that, like, down the road, I mean, I just wonder if that could be something that plagues him. Like sentimentality has plagued Spielberg. I wonder if the lack of emotion, and we'll see with Interstellar whether or not he's able to make it work this time around.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Won't have to wait too much longer with Interstellar coming out next week. But does Nolan have that in him? Just another reason to get really excited for this movie, like we need another reason. But on that note, we're going to take a little break. We've got a lot more to get into regarding Christopher Nolan and our Interstellar preview. So stay tuned. We'll be back after this short message. You're listening to The Long Take.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this week's episode of The Long Take. Be sure to tune in next time when Justin and I go deep inside Interstellar. Ooh, that should be a good one. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Long Take Movie Podcast, and once the episode drops, you'll be one of the first to hear it. Once again, that's The Long Take Movie Podcast. Subscribe now!
Okay, welcome back to The Long Take with Justyn and Ken. I am Justin, and my co-host is Ken Guidry. And today we're talking about Christopher Nolan, anticipating the release of Interstellar, which is coming out next week. And to get us hyped up for the movie, we've been talking about the movies of Christopher Nolan's filmography, everything going back from The Following up to his last movie, The Dark Knight Rises.
I think what's appealing about Nolan, and you think of, like, let's move on to, like, the Prestige, right? Is that what makes the Prestige work is that it's very cleverly made. It's a very well-made film about these magicians, and I've only seen it once, and it was like 5 years ago. So hopefully you'll.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it too. I tried to watch it again recently, but my DVD was scratched, so I couldn't watch it.
Dude. But okay, so you're not gonna help me out here at all. But
we're both in the same boat. It's been about 4 or 5 years since I've seen it.
But let's try. I have a point here. Why does the Prestige work? Because I think it's a good movie. It's probably. It's probably more minor. I do think it's probably one of his more minor entries, but it works because, like, it has that whole magician ploy, where it's like the setup or the mark.
Yeah.
And then
the three acts of a magic trick.
Yeah, and that's how the Prestige is, like, kind of built around is with that, and yeah, and it's really fun to watch it unfold in that way, and it's great to watch Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale play off each other, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting and interesting aspects to the Prestige, But I think the reason why it is a minor entry is because, like, again, I think it doesn't really click beyond its clever plot, and its interesting characters. I don't think it clicks, like, emotionally. I don't think it has that. Not that every movie has to have, like, an emotional element to it. That's not a requirement. But what I'm saying is that Nolan's films in general are very plot-centric. So the best Nolan movies, like Inception, Memento, and The Dark Knight, the reason why they're so great is because the characters are so strong and the plot moves on such a great pace that everything else kind of falls to the background. It doesn't really matter. Anything else about the movie doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's really about this plot, these characters, the way the story moves, the pacing, the tone. And Christopher Nolan, if there's one thing he's good at, I think he is at least with, like, The Dark Knight and Inception, he is pretty good at finding a tone for his movies and sticking with it. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it doesn't really deviate too much when you're talking about a movie like Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises. The tone pretty much stays the same throughout. And
especially, I think the first big case of that was with Memento, because he's able to pull off this story that unfolds both backwards and forwards.
So ambitious for a second movie.
Mm-hmm. And it has these strong characters. Guy Pearce, probably his best performance
ever.
Yeah, probably his best ever performance. And Carrie-Anne Moss. And I think that when Nolan's in thriller territory, I think that's where he really shines, because Dark Knight really works as a crime thriller.
Well, then what about Insomnia?
What would you call Insomnia?
Like, I've seen it once, and there's never really been, like, I've never said, I'd really like to watch that again.
Well, I actually watched that within the past year, and yeah, the reason why it works, the reason why it's ultimately a fairly good movie, is because it's a thriller, and I think Nolan knows how to make a thriller. I think that's what we should take away here, is that Nolan knows how to make a thriller. The case like The Prestige, which isn't necessarily a thriller as much as it is more like a mystery. I don't know, what would you call The Prestige?
Yeah,
I don't even
classify that movie.
I mean, I guess it's a drama, but it has like its thrilling moments to it. I don't know. The movie doesn't really have like a classic thriller aspect to it.
No.
And I think maybe with Inception, the reason why that works is because it has like this thriller element to it, but in a large scale, and it's more about exploring. It's more of an adventure film. It's like a dark adventure film, Inception.
Yeah. Well, these guys have this goal that they have. They've got something that they need to achieve. And we're just watching them do their thing. I think a lot of the times it gets classified as an action movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know what? Yeah, because it has a lot of great action sequences to it. But I think the reason why it works for you, it works for me. The reason why it works for a lot of people, these two movies, and Memento and all that stuff, is because the action feels right with everything else that's happening in the movie. The action doesn't feel out of place. Although I will say that there are times in Inception, especially like when they first get out of the car, someone got shot, right, and they're trying to take care of them.
Yeah, they make it to the second level, which is the hotel.
Mm-hmm, and then all of a sudden these guys start, because the Japanese guy, he's like mad or so. I don't know what it is.
Look at Listen to Us. Like we can't even remember the plot to the movie. That's so funny.
But you know what I'm saying, though? He's angry or whatever, or something inside him makes a gunfight happen. And so, like, they have to get into a gunfight. And I remember being like, oh, wow, that's kind of weird how all of a sudden there's this gunfight. You know what I mean?
No. It was because he was aware. They were in, not the Japanese guy's dream, but Cillian Murphy's character. They were in his head.
Right.
And his subconscious became aware that they were in his head, and he had the security team, basically like insurance. You know what I mean? It was like dream insurance, which like that's when you start getting a little out there, dream insurance. But yeah, that's when the gunfight started happening, because he was a little suspicious of these people in his dream.
Describing it all that just
it does
sounds silly.
It's funny because it works though. Like the first time for me, and I guess every time since, I've kind of taken it with a grain of salt, but the first time I watched it, I was totally sold. I remember loving it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, talking about it is kind of silly. But you could talk about The Matrix, and it seems kind of silly. But when you watch it,
and I remember people comparing Inception to The Matrix.
Well, the special effects come to mind first and foremost.
But yeah, what I was trying to say though is that I think the reason why we like Inception, we like Dark Knight best, is because Christopher Nolan's able to mix these classic genre elements with an original story. I think that's the best way to describe his movies. The ones that really work. The reason why people like it so much. Because he has a blockbuster sensibility. He has a sensibility that is agreeable with audiences. He's not like your typical blockbuster director.
No, he's kind of like a director's director, but he makes movies for fans or something. I don't know. It's like he walks that fine line between being like an auteur and being, I don't know what the opposite of an auteur is.
Like a studio director. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people can look at his films because they have the tendency to try to appeal to you from a cerebral sense rather than an emotional sense. I think some people are put up by that and think that he's trying too hard to make something look intelligent. You know what I mean? And I can see that, because I do think, we talk about The Prestige, the fact that he constructs this movie to be like one big magic trick. I mean, to have the thought to do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got some ambition that's really admirable and.
Yeah, and so you can either admire it, or you could be like, dude, just make the fucking movie.
Oh, that's cheap. Yeah, just give us a movie.
Or like we were describing, that scene in Inception. It's like, dude, do we really have just the rules that he comes up with? You know what I mean? For this dream world. I can understand people being like, what are these rules? What's the deal here? Because Inception is really so much about it is explaining these rules, and but for me, it's fascinating to watch. To try to have this world be explained, because it's a fascinating world to me. But if you're not fascinated by it, if you think it's a bunch of hogwash, then you're not going to care. You're going to be like, well, okay, can we get to the next plot point? Can we get to the next part of the movie instead of having you explain everything to me all the time? But I don't know. I think that, and that's always been the mark against Inception. The biggest mark is that it's so much exposition. But for me, I think he's able to make the exposition feel important and dramatic. And I think, for me, the reason why Inception works is because those expositionary scenes and moments, it feels like it's unlocking something, something fascinating.
Yeah, I know that's a serious knock in his movie on Inception, because it's really obvious. It's right in your face. The audience. Better for worse is the character. I can't remember the actress's name now, but
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page. Okay, I knew it was Elle something. But as she learns things about the dream worlds and just everything about the movie, that's us learning along with it. Exposition. It's just right there in your face. All the exposition in that movie. So yeah, I've heard that criticism, and it's warranted, I think. But I still like the movie.
So I do want to talk about Nightcrawler. We should probably take another break, but we have, a couple of movies to wrap up. Let's just wrap up Nolan's filmography. Let's rank Nolan's films, and let's explain why they are where they are, okay?
In 5 minutes. Okay.
I think we could do it. I'll do it first, and then you can go, okay?
Okay. Do you have a list already? I don't have a list yet.
No, I'm just going to make this shit up.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it in a way it's interesting. I have a good approach to this, all right? So my favorite Nolan film is Memento. Memento is still my favorite Nolan film. It got me into Christopher Nolan. And again, it's clever, it's fun, it's also dark and mysterious, and it has fantastic performances from Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Joe Pantoliano. Fucking yeah. And yeah, it's just a very clever film. And I feel like Nolan hasn't really... I mean, not that he should repeat himself, but there's aspects of Memento that I wish we would see again from him in some form. You know what I mean? And that's why it's also my favorite movie, because I feel like it's him at his most playful. It's him at his most fun. Even though it is dark, it gets dark, and I think that's why it's my number one favorite movie. For number 2 and 3, I would say Inception and then The Dark Knight.
You have Inception over The Dark Knight?
Okay, maybe not. Dark Knight over. This is why it's bad to do it like this, but whatever. So I'd say 2 is The Dark Knight. Yeah, you're right, because Dark Knight does unfold beautifully and quickly. The pace is just relentless, and Heath Ledger probably gives one of the best performances in a superhero movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I think Dark Knight's and there's just so much that it's so loaded. You know, like I said, I have to be in a certain mood to watch it, but when I'm watching it, I'm just totally with it. And I've seen it like 4 or 5 times, and it hasn't withered for me. Like the feeling that I have for it, like the strong feelings I have for it, it hasn't been, because you want a lot of these blockbuster films, you watch it at home and it doesn't have the same effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case for me with The Dark Knight. It still has the same big effect on me. It feels like a big movie, and it is a big movie, and it works in ways that I haven't had for another superhero movie. Right. It works for me because I'm not really a comic book guy, and so with The Dark Knight, because it also works as a heist movie, because it also works as a crime, just a straight up crime thriller, that's what makes it so appealing to me. Right. And that's why I think it's just a fantastic film. I'll go a little faster. Number 3 is Inception, for sure, mm-hmm. because I think that now that Nolan has this big sandbox, I should say, uh-huh. he really fucking goes to town with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Inception, but it's interesting that you talk about like the sandbox that he has to play in, and as far as the rankings, I'm right there with you for 1, 2, and 3, Memento, Dark Knight, and Inception. But I thought it was really interesting, the pattern between, Batman movies and then the movies that he did between those Batman movies, because it's mm-hmm. kind of like, I'll do one for you, and I'm going to do one for me. He made mm-hmm. Batman Begins, then he did The Prestige, and then Dark Knight to Inception, and now Dark Knight Rises, and now he's doing Interstellar. So it's kind of interesting, like how you get a little give and take, like. Not to say that he didn't want to make those movies, but it's kind of like he had a contract, I think, for the first 2, and just because those movies seemed like more like he and his brother wrote them. Am I right? So it was like more like they're his, kind of like his babies, whereas the Batman movies, like that's like a neighbor kid that's staying at his house while he's watching, mm-hmm. Taking care of him.
Yeah.
But what do you have below Inception?
No, this is where it gets a little hairy. Because I would say number 4 would be Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, we're still tied up.
Yeah, even though it has, it's funny doing.
Do you remember what I said when we left the theater about Dark Knight Rises?
You liked it more than Dark Knight, didn't you?
I thought I was like, I was so hyped up on the movie. I was like, that was the best of the 3. And then since then I've gotten my sanity back. But I still like it a lot.
And I mean,
a little wrapped up in all the excitement.
And the thing is, like, there are a lot of people who do not like The Dark Knight Rises at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
just because of that one thing about like, how does he get back to Gotham? People talk about continuity errors.
Plot holes like that don't really. It didn't really bother me, and it still doesn't really bother me because like, it just works as a great blockbuster film. You know what I mean? And
I love Bane. I love that character.
Yeah.
It's so nice to finally see, like, usually it's either visually intimidating and stupid or genius and, really slender and, kind of like a Oz-type character where he works from behind a curtain. And here you have Bane, who's not only a genius, a mastermind, but also, at the end it's revealed that he's working for somebody else, but still, he's a smart character, and he's this brawly, he's just this behemoth. You know what the thing, and I agree with you. You know what the thing is with me with Dark Knight Rises ultimately? Huh. I feel like I don't see how it could have been that much better, given where the story was at that point. Heath Ledger died. You couldn't really revisit Joker. Yeah. And I think Nolan takes a lot of bold steps. The ending is very bold. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like Dark Knight Rises, but
the fact that people weren't like completely flipping their shit over when we find out that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's gonna maybe be the next Batman, like the fact that he was able to kind of pull that off impressed me. You know what I mean? Because
it could have been very cheesy. I mean, it kind of was, but I mean, it could have been way cheesier.
Yeah, it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't cheesy to me. You know,
that's why I say kinda, because it wasn't really cheesy to me. But I can see how people could be like, "Oh, of course," you know. The one cheesy thing though is like when the girl says you should use your real name, which is Robin. That was a little.
Oh yeah.
Like, I thought like he really needed to spell it out for us. Like, if we don't get it by now, this is for all the dummies in the audience.
This is Robin. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, there's just so many other great moments to it. You know, like I said, Michael Caine's performance is great. Yeah. Anne Hathaway is great.
She was awesome. Yeah. She kind of stole every scene that she was in.
She did. Even though I love her, I would say Marion Cotillard may be the weaker link of the film.
Yeah, her death was kind of like, one of my friends pointed out to me that it was one of the worst deaths she's ever seen in a movie, and I was like, really? And then I went back and watched it, and she was right. It was kind of a weak death.
Isn't it interesting though? Like, because you and I, we like Christopher Nolan, and I'm at number 4 with this list.
Yeah.
But with the number 4 movie on Nolan's list, we have. I mean, I don't know what your number 4 is. Is it also
Dark Knight Rises? Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that there are a lot of elements to The Dark Knight Rises that don't quite work, and it's number 4, and he's made 9 movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. It kind of makes you realize, wait a minute, like, how much do you really like Nolan? I think the reason why we like Nolan so much is because his great movies are really great. You know what I mean? And I think there's enough interesting things with his lesser movies that keeps me above water. You know what I mean? That keeps me above. Because you know what? Number 5 for me would probably be Batman Begins. Would it be for you too?
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I have to watch The Prestige. Maybe I don't even know how to get The Prestige. Is it on at Best Buy or something like that?
I have a DVD. It said it was kind of scratched, but I did like the disc cleaner. I haven't tried it yet though because I had to go to work. But anyway, The Prestige is one that I want to watch again. Go ahead.
Maybe when Interstellar comes, we'll watch Interstellar, and maybe we'll try to find a way to rewatch The Prestige in our own time.
Sure.
And then we'll revisit those lists. But because I probably put Batman Begins 5, Prestige 6, 7 would be Insomnia.
I like Following more than Insomnia.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Following is just such a. Well, he's made 9 movies so far, right? And
I think that's all of them. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then Interstellar is 9. Oh shit! I thought Interstellar was his 10th movie. Yeah, you're right, 9th movie. But I don't know. I would say Insomnia, The Prestige, then Insomnia, and then Following. You'd have it differently. Those bottom 2 movies, those bottom 3 really, because The Prestige, like they're all movies that I've only seen once. The rest of his movies I've seen multiple times. So I guess it's kind of like a tie for last for me. The Prestige I probably just need to watch again because I think there's something there. But with The Following, I think 1 or 2 viewings. I think with 1 viewing, it's enough to really get what that movie's trying to say. Same thing with Insomnia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, maybe The Prestige is much better than I originally thought it was, but the reason why I still think we can recite this list and it's somewhat valid is because I still, even when I watched it the first time, the only time, I kind of felt like it was minor. You know what I mean? It kind of felt like a minor film as far as
Following was before Memento. That was his first movie, right?
Following, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just think it's pretty cool that Memento, the first movie that I've ever seen, is still to this day at the top of the list. But maybe it's kind of like the Chasing the Dragon kind of thing, you know, like where he hasn't like affected me in that kind of a way since then. Like I'm wanting to be blown away like I was the first time I saw one of his films, and it just hasn't happened. You know, maybe that's why that's still so high. But I just remember being like completely just mind fucked watching Memento, just blown away. Like that was my first movie where it ended and I was like, wow, that was insane and really, really, just really smart. And to have that be your second movie and to go ahead and make an experience like that where a movie goes backwards so that you see everything with the character for the first time, I don't know. Like, that's really ambitious, really smart.
And you know what? I think the reason why following isn't just number 9 because it's his first movie. What I didn't like about Following as much is the fact that, so the ending is really cool, right? Because it all connects everything, like it's all planned. The fact that he found this guy and he's, if I'm remembering the plot right, again.
I can't even remember the plot. I remember watching it and enjoying it, but I can't really remember. It was like they go into people's houses. They don't do anything. They just go into their houses.
Well, at first, the one dude, the main character, is just following people around as a hobby. Uh-huh. And then he finds this guy who goes into people's houses and steals things. Okay. And then he winds up doing that with him. Okay. But then you find out towards the end that, like, the guy knew he was following him, and then he played along with it, and then he kind of fucked him over. That's how it ends. And for me, I was like, okay, it's really clever. You know what I mean? It just kind of felt like it was trying a little too hard to be clever. And you know what? That's maybe the first film folly.
The old Triple F.
First film folly. But I don't know. That's why it's number 9 for me. And you know what? Maybe that's why I feel like Nolan kind of has that tendency, though, throughout his career, where he's like, again, when we talk about the way Prestige is constructed, aspects of Inception, he has a tendency to try to want to be clever and cool about the way he constructs his movies. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. And I think that's the one thing that kind of nags me about Nolan is that there are times where it's like, all right, dude, you don't have just don't worry about being clever. You know what I mean?
Well, hopefully he addresses some of that in Interstellar.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about what we're feeling about Interstellar in the last part of this episode. But up next, we're gonna jump into our review of Nightcrawler. So stick around.
Wait! Before we go to break, you had posed this question to me before about imagery. What kind of scenes really stick out in your mind?
Oh, okay.
When you talk about the Nolan film, so why don't we come back from our break and we'll talk about that real quick.
We'll talk about that, Nightcrawler, and then Interstellar preview.
You're listening to The Long Take.
Boom, baby.
Hey there, boys and girls, Justyn here. We had a lot of fun making this episode, and we hope that you're enjoying it. Just wanted to take some time to let you know that we really want The Long Take to be an interactive experience. We want to hear from you. Like something you hear? Let us know. Or maybe you disagree with something we said. Tell us just how wrong we were when we said that one thing that you didn't like. Nothing is off the table. And who knows, you may wind up being a future guest on the show. You can contact the show on Twitter, @TLTpodcast, or send an email to tltpodcast@gmail.com. Ken and I hope to hear from you very soon. Thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Long Take. I yawn because we've been at it for quite some time. But up next, we're going to talk about Nightcrawler. We're going to talk about what we're expecting from Interstellar, or what we're not expecting. But first, Justyn has asked me a question, and he's going to ask it again because I kind of forgot what he asked. And so go ahead, Justyn. Take it away.
Okay. The question that I had asked you was over the, what do we have, 8 movies of Christopher Nolan's, 9 on the way. What are the scenes that really stick out to you? What are the images that really stick in your mind? There are movies like Schindler's List, the girl with the red dress, things like that. Mm-hmm. Are there anything, or do those moments come to you or come to mind when you think about Nolan's films?
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because I posed that question to you. Was it early today, or yesterday?
Yeah, it was a couple days ago.
Yeah, because with Spielberg, I would say the defining shot of it, like the shot that most characterizes who Spielberg is as a filmmaker, is the girl with the red dress. Because I think that sums up how he feels about humanity, how he feels about the world, and just his. I think, we talk about, how his sentimentality and his emotions, and sometimes how that gets the best of him in some movies. And, there's the girl in the red dress has been, like, hotly contested sometimes. People are like, you know what, even if they like the movie, they're like, you know what, I felt like the girl in the red dress was too much. It was a little bit...
I can see how people saying, like, it's kind of like manipulating the audience. Like George Lucas had said, if I want to, like, make people feel something, I'll just, like, kill a cat on screen or something, and that'll make them feel something. It's kind of like that. Like, let's just take this little girl and end her and make everybody sad.
Yeah, it's interesting because when she comes up, you're like, huh? Why is she wearing?
Why is she in color?
Yeah, but I think it just goes to show, like, there's all these people, and they don't really stand out for the rest. The fact that we pay attention to her and we know what happens to her at the end, it sticks with you, and I think that's what Spielberg wanted. Obviously, a lot of things were going to stick with you as soon as this, but he specifically wanted, like, something like that to stick with you, and I think that describes Spielberg to a T. I think that's what he looks for, is trying to really get the audience to really get a gut feeling, to get that emotional gut feeling, even if it's negative, even if they don't like it. He still wants that from his audience. So that's what I think is defining with Spielberg. We both agreed on that. With Nolan, does he have a defining shot?
Yeah, I kind of racked my brain trying to think of something, but I came up with something. What'd you come up with?
I would say it's the Joker poking his head out of the car. Is that
after escaping from the MCU?
Was that it?
Of course, you know me so well.
That might be the only individual shot in a Nolan film that really pops at you.
Because it stands on its own. It's just like, while all this mayhem is going on, and they realize that he is really in control. And there he is in a cop car, just driving through. You see fire in the reflection of the vehicle in the window, and on his face is just bliss. And he's just like a dog or something out in the wind, just like having the time of his life, just not a care in the world, while the world's like burning around him. Yeah,
that scene just perfectly encapsulates the movie. I think that encapsulates that theme of the movie. That how there are some people who are just inherently evil, and that's all they will ever be. Yeah. But like, would you say that's who Nolan is? Is that shot? I'm not sure.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I don't think so either. So yeah, it's when we ask this question. It's a good question, but I'm trying to think. Maybe the final shot of Inception so far can define Nolan, because I think that he likes.
Oh, the top spinning.
The top spinning. You know what? Yeah, I think it's fucking that, dude. Because here's the thing. It's him, Nolan, trying to be a little clever SOB, trying to be like, hey guys, is the top going to fall over? Is it going to fall over?
And it did work. People kept talking about that.
Is it going to... end credit.
Accomplished.
Fuck you, audience.
I think that's it. That's the image that defines him.
I mean, it's kind of an obvious one, but you know what? I feel like it's going to be an obvious choice. You know what I mean? Because if it's a defining shot, you remember it. But yeah, I would say it's the top spinning at the end of Inception, because it's Nolan wanting to sum up his movie in like his clever, brainy way. You know what I mean? He's like, remember when we introduced the whole spinning top thing? Well, here it is again, and
it's like textbook. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I definitely think that's probably the best example of a defining shot with Nolan.
What do you say we start talking about Nightcrawler?
All right. What were your thoughts on Nightcrawler?
I just saw it yesterday. I saw it last night, and I had some time to sleep on it. Really impressed knowing that this is this guy's first movie. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance was incredible. I haven't seen him like this. He impressed me in Zodiac. He impressed me more recently in Prisoners. But when I first heard about this movie, I was like, okay, Jake Gyllenhaal, he lost a little bit of weight, and this is him doing his, Christian Bale in The Machinist, or Fassbender in Hunger, like actors losing weight to get into a role, or just to make a drastic change in their appearance. List goes on and on with actors who've done that. But I was hoping that wasn't all that this was. And I'm glad that it wasn't, because It was a pretty damn good movie.
Yes, it was. And for me, it's one of my favorite movies of the year because it has so many different aspects to it that works. It works as a satire of the media. It works as kind of like this crime thriller type thing. It works as a character study. It just has all these different layers to it. And the thing is, it's a 2-hour movie, and it doesn't seem like it's trying to do that much, but it is. And I think that's what's great about it, is that even though it kind of has like this classic genre element to it, the fact that it's able to get across all these thoughts and opinions about ethics and morality in journalism, it goes where Gone Girl didn't really care about going.
Explain yourself there.
Amy Doon missing and everything like that. It wasn't really trying to satirize the media too much.
Oh, okay, with the emphasis on the media and their role and what their motives are. Okay, yeah, I see that then, definitely.
So I think Nightcrawler decides to go ahead and just go for it. And the reason why it works when it goes for the kind of like the jugular almost, because it's really kind of nasty. It's a really nasty film.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Deliciously nasty, you know what I mean? Which is kind of like a oxymoron, but whatever. But yeah, it's deliciously nasty. It's like you take a bite and you're like, ooh, but then you want to eat it again. You just want to...
Right from the beginning, too, like the way he looks at the security guard that comes up to him, he's like smiling, and you get like, right away that this guy is manipulative.
Yeah.
He's like not a likable character at all.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of like, I'm not really rooting for him throughout the movie, and it made me think, like, when is the last time that somebody's been, had the balls to make a movie where the main character is somebody that the audience is going to really hate and have him drive the movie?
Yeah, I don't know.
Really risky, but worked for me. It really worked for me.
I think the reason why Lou Bloom, which is his name, you want to follow him because you hate him, but he is kind of fun to watch. And you know what? I think it's because it kind of sums up news media or television news media in general, to think about it. Because it's like, how many times have you heard people complain about, oh my God, violence in the news?
In the media. We should probably give a little breakdown, like a little preview of the movie or synopsis for folks who maybe haven't heard of it or don't know about it.
Okay, I'll start to synopsize it. So, Lou Bloom lives in Los Angeles, kind of a loner, would you say? He is pretty much the definition of a loner. But he's not a loner who craves human contact. Is he, Justyn?
No, he's very much the creepy guy that you don't want to talk to. He kind of loathes human contact. He only uses it for his own personal gain, and he's trying to find his way. And at one point, very early on in the movie, he sees an accident on the road, and he sees these guys with cameras, and he's wondering, what are they doing with this? Can you make a living out of this? And is this something that I could be good at? And it turns out that he's very good at it. And the movie just explores his adventure of kind of making it seem like it's not really an adventure, but the movie kind of explores just his trip to becoming one of those guys, and all the ugly things that come along the way with him.
Yeah, to make it clear, like, what he basically does is whenever there's an accident or a crime scene, like, he takes a police scanner, listens to one that he thinks would sell to a news station. He drives over to the crime scene, he videotapes it, and then he sells it to the news. And they want it. They crave this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's basically what he does. And he's good at it because he hates people, so he has no problems filming them at their worst state.
He's not connected at all. He has no empathy. He doesn't care. He couldn't care less about the people on the other end of his camera. He's only using them for his own personal gain. I was trying to think of anything that was admirable about Lou Bloom, and I suppose his work ethic. Yeah.
He's and you know what? He's a fast learner. He's
a fast learner.
He says that like 3 or 4 multiple times.
Yeah, he's dedicated. I mean, he's not lying when he says he's a fast learner. It didn't take him very long to upgrade to that nice car, and then from then on to the, as the movie unfolds. But yeah, wow, it was one hell of a ride.
Dude, the way the movie unfolds, like in the third act, when he goes, the last crime scene that he goes to the house, the I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say there's a murder in a house, because, he goes to crime scenes, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's what he does. But what he chooses to give to the news station that he constantly works for, and what he chooses to withhold from everyone until the end, that to me was just so fucking brilliant. I was just like, wow, because the police come to his apartment, and they, because he's so unethical, because he has no moral boundaries, and he's going to these crime scenes sometimes when the police aren't even there. Naturally, police officer finds out that this guy took footage. Yeah, beat to a crime scene, got all this footage. They want to know what that footage is.
Right.
And the fact that he already he knows what's coming. He's a smart character.
Yeah.
He knows what's coming. He knows that the police are going to get there. He's not caught off guard. He gives him the footage, quote unquote, but not all of it. It's just so brilliant, just the way that unfolds. And then you get into this car chase scene, which was one of the more electrifying car chase scenes that I've seen in quite some time.
Oh, sure, for sure. Better than anything I've seen in Fast and Furious, which is like a movie designed to be about car chases and things like that. Not
to say that it has equals the amount of carnage, but it's just because of how it fits with the rest of the movie. It just fits. It fits so well, and because you're so invested in the movie at that point, it does become a great car chase scene. And it's a very fun movie. It's fun. It's darkly humorous. Would you say? I laughed. I laughed.
I was in a theater full of people that were laughing on more than one occasion at the things that he would say, because they're so off the wall. Because he's this socially awkward character, but almost kind of like my one friend who I saw it said it seemed almost like he had Asperger's or something like that, some kind of a condition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about all that, but it was weird, because for somebody who spends so much time alone, so much time on his computer, probably on the internet, just learning things, reading things, he's able to manipulate people.
Mm-hmm.
And he does really well in social situations, even to the point where he can outwit a police detective whose job it is to break people down and get answers. So,
and what about that scene with Rene Russo, who, welcome back, well, she was in the Thor movies, but welcome back into regular movie world. The scene where he takes her out on a quote unquote date,
and then propositions her.
The fucking balls on this guy.
Yeah, he has no shame whatsoever.
He's like, listen, are you gonna sleep with me or not?
Yeah,
no?
At one point he says, you can go then, if you want.
And because I guess he's attracted to Rene Russo's character, and she plays the news director that
he's giving constantly all his footage to.
Yeah, he's giving
all. Not giving, selling.
He's selling the footage to this news crew, to the news station. She's the director of the station, and they're dead last in the ratings. She's desperate for this kind of stuff, and he's constantly giving her the goods, but he also wants to give her some other goods, namely his penis. And she's like, no, I'd rather have your footage. And he's like, maybe I won't sell you my footage. Maybe I'll sell it to another station, and maybe you'll get fired. And she's like, is this guy serious? And the thing is, yes, he's serious.
He's totally serious. Serious as a heart attack.
Yeah. And goddamn, it just, the balls on this movie. This movie just has balls. You know what I'm saying? It just has two big sweaty testicles, and I just admired it. I admired it. I loved it. And you know what? You're probably thinking, you know what? Something's gonna happen to this guy. He can't win. And you know what?
And that's the craziest thing about it.
Is that why wouldn't he win?
Yeah.
This is what this is how the world works.
Yeah.
This is how the news media works.
I was thinking about, like, as we were walking back to our cars, or even, like, when I was still in the theater, like, the guy who's in charge of TMZ, like, what did he do before becoming that powerful guy in a suit?
Wasn't he a lawyer?
Somewhere. Yeah, I don't know, but, like, I'm sure there are tons of powerful people in this world who got there doing, on the backs of innocent people. Like, the guy that he hires, a homeless guy who just needs a job, who is completely taken advantage of for the length of the entire movie. I'm trying to remember the scene toward the end, like one of the last scenes of them talking. I think it's when they're talking about his review or something like that. Oh, no, it was when he threatens him. The way that he threatens him, where he's like, if you're not going to go out there and film, there's a good chance that, I don't know, like, I don't want to attempt to imitate what he says, because he does such a good job, but that line, like, just his delivery, he did a really incredible job. I wasn't sure that he had it in him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just oddly just the perfect role for Jake Gyllenhaal to really just stretch himself.
Yeah, because he's got that, like, ear-to-ear smile and those bright eyes that are just even wider and brighter in this movie.
And because in the past, you mentioned Zodiac, there's Prisoners, Source Code, back to Donnie Darko even, where he plays, like, these kind of innocent characters who may have a hint of darkness in them, but they're mostly innocent and they're mostly sympathetic. They're mostly protagonists. Here in Nightcrawler, he takes those elements and just the darkness is just the innocence is gone, and it's just the darkness inside.
Brutal honesty, just no holds barred. His altercation with Bill Paxton when he was trying to hire him, and he says, like, he wants to take his ears and scream into his head or something like that.
Just let you know that he doesn't want to work for you. Yeah,
just like the deadpan way, like he doesn't give a shit about anything but what he wants to do, and what you want him to do isn't on his radar. And
I just think that, like, I've seen comparisons with this movie to Network, which I think, have you seen Network?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a very apt comparison. Obviously, it's hard to compare it to a classic like that.
Sure.
But Network has its fair share of detractors because of just how melodramatic the whole thing is. But that's what worked for me about Network, is how you think of that scene towards the end of Network with Ned Beatty, who explains, like, what they're really trying to do at the news station, and just he goes on this big monologue, in the empty room with the main character. He just kind of unleashes, like, this mentality of where they don't give a shit about people. They're all about ratings. They're all about money.
Right.
It's a power play.
Just like how the station isn't about delivering the news. It's about delivering the story that's going to get people watching so that they can get ratings and get money and get power.
The reason why Network worked is because it's so outrageous in a lot of ways. And yet there's a party that's like, you know what? Maybe at least in 1976, you're like, you know what? This really isn't all that far off from what could really happen. That's that's what makes Network, and then obviously Fox News.
That's what I was thinking. It came true.
Fox News, is Fox News is Network coming to life, basically. And for Nightcrawler, it's like, again, it works because it's not like it's not like trying to point its finger necessarily, or like, hey, news media, get your shit together. It's more like it's just having fun. Like, it's like how it's having fun with how fucked up the news media is, and just like, and that's the thing, it has fun with itself. It's a fun black comedy, and it's just rich with, like, these great scenes and dialogue, and it's outlandish, but it's not too far off from what could really happen, or maybe it is really happening. Who knows? I don't know. But
the one time that I was kind of, like, taken out of the movie was the last scene between Lou and Rene Russo's character, when he just had that footage of the chase and everything, and how she was just, like, someone looking into the eyes of their long lost lover or something like that. It was, I was expecting them to like when she was like, "He was your partner." I don't know. That was like a little, I don't know, a little too much. But
it may have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to watch this movie again.
Oh yeah.
And
how cool is it? Like that moment right when in the beginning, when he's asking for the job, and the guy's like, I wouldn't hire a thief or whatever, and he just changes his facial expression just right on a dime, smiles and points at him like, I don't know. It's just like he creeped me out like to the bones.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? That scene is also so key to the movie because it's like, yeah, that construction guy wouldn't hire a thief, but you know what? You know what job is perfect for thieves? It's this job. It's filming crime scenes. This is a perfectly legal thing you could do. You know what I mean? I think it's just a great movie. It shows this crazy world, this little kind of world of like filming crime scenes, and it just shows you just how insane the whole thing is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like when you're watching your news in the morning or whenever, like the little picture within the picture of what's going on. Like there's a big picture going on, that is just a little image on your TV screen, but that's something that really happened, and you're just watching it all unfold while you drink your coffee or whatever. And
exactly.
You take it for granted.
And Nightcrawler is a movie. And you know what else is a movie? Interstellar.
Your segues have gotten better and better. This is only episode 2, and you're setting the standard very high.
So, Justin, give us your thoughts on Interstellar so far.
Well, so far in this conversation here, we've been talking about the regard that we have, how highly we regard Nolan's films. And with that in mind, I've made it a point to kind of avoid any kind of information about Interstellar, because I know right off the bat, even before seeing any trailers or posters or whatever, I know that I'm going to be there to see this movie when the time comes. So the more I know about it, or the less I know about it, rather. The less I know about it, the better, because I just kind of want that experience of not knowing what I'm going to get, and then just being taken on a ride. Like, I know who's in it, and I know that it has to do with space, and it's got Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey and Jessica Chastain, and that's enough for me.
Yeah. Any lingering thoughts? Like, what are you wondering is going to happen?
Well, I'm hoping that this is kind of the movie that takes him in a different direction, maybe a new phase in his career. Now that Batman's behind him, he's not going to have that movie to fall back on anymore. It's not like, all right, I'm going to do this, passion project or whatever, and then next summer I'll be working on this movie that's going to make millions and millions of dollars. Like, that's behind him. Now he's got to put up the work for himself, and I'm really excited to see, because that's got to be pretty freeing for somebody to kind of, just shed that skin. He's not attached to that franchise anymore, and this is the first movie that he's doing as a free man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and he's a guy who can really do. I have faith that he can do anything that he wants, and present it in a way that's really good and really just looks good on a big screen. So, I'm really excited about just what more he has to show us going forward. How is he going to grow? Because, like we said, he is a young man. He's only in his 40s. He's got a lot more movies to make. Really excited to see if this is indeed the first step in a new direction for him, so he can evolve. Not to say that he hasn't been wonderful so far, but I'd like to see.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because when we're breaking down Nolan in this episode, and this is going to be interesting with future episodes too, because talking about him at this length, I've come to realize there are a lot of things about Nolan that I necessarily don't love. You know what I mean? Whereas when I think about Nolan and his work as a whole, I'm like, yeah, his movies are mostly great. But then we break it down and say, okay, do your list. Rank his movies? And you're like, okay, Memento, The Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, I guess. It's like, wait, only three movies that are stand out to us, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, maybe he has, that's the thing. For me, I just feel like he has a lot to offer. He has a unique voice. And what I was trying to say before, he's so unique in that, like, he's kind of a brainy guy, and yet he's able to connect with audiences on some level. You know, I guess a contemporary comparison would be the Wachowski brothers, or Lana and
yeah, I think they're called the Wachowski siblings now.
They're also kind of cerebral in their approach to filmmaking, you know. And I haven't seen Cloud Atlas actually, but what I know about it is, you know, they take so many chances with I mean, it's very ambitious. And with Nolan, I mean, obviously Interstellar is a very ambitious undertaking, and it'll be interesting to see because, and this is we should bring up, is, you know, the reviews so far for Interstellar not overwhelmingly great. You know what I mean? I remember when Inception came out. Right before Inception came out, it was like the buzz was just deafening. You're like, holy shit, this is really gonna be. It's gonna be this good. Holy shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or the Dark Knight, before Dark Knight came out, the critics were fucking raving like hell about it, because there's always like in those cases, you know, or like last year with Gravity or 12 Years a Slave, where like the praise is so overwhelming. There's so much praise for it, and I guess sites like Rotten Tomatoes kind of encourages that mentality, because it's like, oh yeah, we love it too. We all love it. 99%, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. But then everyone's like, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, okay, it's not that good. You know, it's not 98%, and then it's everything. So then all of a sudden everything becomes overrated or underrated or whatever, or however they feel about it.
Yeah, you have to be different. Your opinion has to be different. No, like sometimes a movie's just really good. I don't know, but again, haven't seen it, and I'm trying to avoid. Obviously, I'm avoiding the criticism if I'm avoiding, you know, any information about the movie. But
it's interesting with Interstellar, because the reason why it's not really hitting off with all the critics is because it takes big risks. It takes big chances. Inception took big risks, and he pulled it off, you know. And that's the thing, is like, maybe he pulls it off this time, maybe he doesn't. He's not just trying to make mindless popcorn fare. Maybe you feel that that's what they ultimately are, but he does intend, at least, to make something that's, while legitimately entertaining, there's also some thought behind it. I think I'm excited about Interstellar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's going to be interesting. When do you plan on seeing it, Justyn?
Well, maybe on Friday, depending on what I have to do that day. I'd like to see it opens what, Thursday?
Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday? Okay. Yeah,
I might see it Friday. I'm off that day. I'll try to run over to the movies and see it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm hoping to see it this weekend for sure. Yeah, because that's going to be it's like the big movie. You have to see it.
If I don't see it Friday, then I'll see it Monday. But I don't know if I'll see it in IMAX.
Me neither. I'd rather save my money. I don't know. I just, especially again, because there's been rumors that the sound quality isn't too great at the IMAX theaters. So
it's not IMAX 3D, is it?
No, he doesn't shoot in 3D.
Yeah, he doesn't do 3D because he doesn't do digital. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, fuck! I was thinking about doing a digital versus film discussion, but
we can't do it tonight.
No. Or can we? In hour number 3 of the long take. No, we can't do it.
I know it's only 10 o'clock over there. It's 1 a.m. on the East Coast.
You know, we'll say that for Paul Thomas Anderson, because he's a very pro film guy, and there's some people who are like why does Nolan and Paul Thomas Anderson care about shooting in film so much? You know what I mean? Why are they so elitist about it? And fuck those guys. I don't know. We really should have a film.
Save it for that episode, Ken.
Yeah, we really should have that discussion. But I think we covered a lot here, a lot of ground. And I hope you guys all enjoyed listening to us, getting to the bottom of Christopher Nolan. As you could hear, we had thoughts about Nolan that we didn't realize we had. Isn't that right, Justyn?
Yeah, we learned a thing or two, didn't we, about ourselves, and that's growth, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think the next episode we should just focus all on Interstellar, and just go into it, and then try and see how it fits with Nolan's work, and see it. Maybe it is a step in the next direction.
That's a good idea. I like that. To all the folks, if you're still listening at this point, I'd like to apologize for my voice, the congestion, coming off of a very, very bad cold. This is day 3. So I want to thank you for putting up with me. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. Next time, I promise I'll be healthy.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure that all the awful coughing you do is edited out.
And the sniffles.
But I'm going to mention it. I'm going to mention it here. That way people know that you're sniffling. But I've been really enjoyed listening to you hacking up your lung.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great episode. Hopefully, wrapping it up. This is Ken,
and this is Justyn. You've been listening to The Long Take.
See you next time.
Bye bye.